The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this beautiful Friday afternoon. At least it's beautiful where I am. Everything should be good now. And sorry I'm late. And it's not that the Trump people try to kidnap me, although some trolls definitely made an attempt, but didn't work. No, I was going to add this new cool piece of equipment to my little setup here that was going to make this show even better. And while, and of course I decided to do this like 3 minutes before the show started. And as I'm tinkering with trying to plug it in the back of my machine, I unplugged basically everything and had to relaunch everything and restart exactly at 2. So it's good to know that within 7-8 minutes I can get everything up and booted and ready to go, even when everything has completely collapsed. But that was pretty dumb of me. I apologize. And hopefully, let's see. I do have to do this. I have to delete a file here. I'll just delete this because something started to record. We deleted that. All right, that's gone. We got this. Everything's cool. All right, that is good. Yeah, I mean, wow, a lot of you showed up early today. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm late. You're early, and a lot of you. I guess I put Trump in the title. I should do this every day. I should always have something to say about Trump. It gets all you guys excited and lathering foam, and I can see we've got our some of our trolls and some others here, all excited about Yaron's commentary on Trump verdict. I mean, if only that would be pretty amazing. If those who are foaming at the mouth right now really cared about all they're here to do is make. No, Trump's great. Trump's amazing. Who cares about what Yaron thinks? And yet here you are, caring about what Yaron thinks. So let's talk about Trump's verdict. We're going to talk about a bunch of news items. This will be one of them. And we will also, on the positive side of this Friday, we are going to talk about AI, some negative, some positive, mainly positive. We'll talk about AI. We'll talk about this. Are we entering into the whole NVIDIA compute era? What that bodes for the future, what challenges that poses, and we'll talk about AI. We'll talk about chips. We'll talk about NVIDIA's valuation. We'll talk about all these things and where it comes from. The stock has, tripled within the last year, something like that. Tripled in the last 12 months. And we'll talk about why that is and things like that. I have to admit, I find far more interesting than the verdict on Trump and so on. All right. So as you probably know, because everybody is basically talking about this, it's on every piece of news. And by the way, John, thank you. John says, happy Friday. I hope you hit your goal today. And he puts $50 on that. So really, really appreciate that, John. It, of course, your $50 is gonna help get us there. And so I appreciate that. Louis Philip Knoll, thank you for the sticker. Generally, I'm not going to read the chat. I'm going to try to avoid you guys on the chat generally because it's distracting. And if you have something worthwhile to say or to ask or to comment on that you actually want me to respond to, the super chat is available to you. There's no reason to discriminate against the people who actually put their money where their mouth is for the people who do not. So please think about using the super chat. Think about using a sticker. If you don't want to ask a question, just to support the show, value for value. The show is funded from contributions by people like you. So even those of you who hate the show but get entertainment value out of coming here and harassing the rest of us, should really pay up. Otherwise, you're really free riding over those people who do pay. And that's just not right. Not right. All right. So your opportunity to set things straight is to participate. And we do have a goal. And we are in the last day of the month. So getting the goal is really crucial. We actually need to go above the goal a little bit. We need to probably get closer to, 850 in order to get my monthly goal. We're a little running behind the monthly goal, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what mood you guys are in and whether you are in a friendly, generous mood or not on this beautiful, amazing Friday. All right. So, as you probably know, because everybody's talking about it, Donald Trump was convicted 34 counts of felony charges. He was convicted on every single one of them, found guilty. He is going to be sentenced on July 11th in the New York court. Every one of these 34 counts carries a sentence, a potential sentence of several $1,000s up to 5 years in jail. Theoretically, this wouldn't happen, but theoretically, he could serve them one after the other. So you do 34 times 5, you would spend the rest of his life in jail. That's not happening. But more likely, if there was a jail sentence, it would be concurrent, and I doubt there's going to be a jail sentence. The judge has a lot of options in terms of sentencing. It's really at the discretion of the judge. That's why it's generally in a criminal case not a particularly good idea, I guess, unless you're running for president, to say nasty things about the judge, because he does hold at least an element of your future in his hands. So that will be in this case, the judge is probably not particularly happy with Donald Trump and ready to go after him. Let's see, what else do we know about the sentencing? The case can be appealed. Probably almost certainly will be appealed. It needs to be appealed within 30 days. You've got a month to appeal it, so the appeal has to happen before the sentencing. The sentencing is July 11th. The judge at the sentencing could basically delay the enforcement of the sentence until after the appeal is heard, or not. It's again at it's up to the judge. And, generally, you guys are not Donald Trump, so just, legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my legal advice seriously. Don't piss off the judge. Too much of your fate rests with him, even if you think convinced that you're innocent. Nothing is to be gained. And again, unless you're actually running for president. Nothing is to be gained from pissing him off. I think that's where we stand, right? I mean, this will be clarified in the next few weeks, really by July 11th, and then there's an appeal, and what happens beyond that. Now, what about evaluating this decision by the jury? A jury of your peers, and I know it's easy to dismiss them, and somebody said, well, they're not real Americans because they're from New York, and that doesn't count as a real American, so they're not really a jury of my peers. But of course, Donald Trump is not exactly your peer either. He is from New York. He is very much from New York. He is very much a New York character. So I guess it was a jury of his peers, even if it's not your peers. All right, let's see. Beyond that, yes. What about how do you evaluate this whole case? Well, let's there are two real issues here. One is the issues of facts. Are the facts that the prosecution claims happened, did they really happen? And then the second question is, even if they did happen, was there a violation of the law that would justify a felony charge? In particular, given that the underlying accusation relates to what typically would be a misdemeanor, and we've already passed the what do you call it, the 2 years where you can actually file charges for a crime, for this kind of misdemeanor, which is falsifying business records. So on the issues of fact, did Donald Trump pay a porn star and a Playboy model to silence them before an election so the story wouldn't break? Yeah, I mean, of course he did. Does anybody doubt that? Has anybody ever doubted it? Is this ever been in doubt? It's pretty much yes, of course he did. Did he then falsify business records so that in the business record it didn't say paid off porn star? It actually said, I don't know, some legal thing, right? Well, of course he falsified business records. I mean, who wouldn't, right? If you're paying off the porn star, you're not going to actually admit to paying off the porn star. The whole point of paying off the porn star is not for the story not to break. So you're not going to put it in writing that you paid off the porn star. So did he falsify the records? Yes, of course he did. Again, I think the probability of that happening is 99%. And that's based both on the testimony in the court and on Donald Trump's character and who he is, what he represents, how he lives his life. I think all of that is true. So on the facts of the case, there's just no question that all those facts line up with the prosecution. But here's where it gets into trouble as a legal case. What's the crime? So he falsified business records. That's a misdemeanor. But that's a misdemeanor that, again, the what do you call it? Statute of limitations is already covered. It's more than 2 years over. And it's a slap on the wrist, and it's done. I mean, nobody, it's not a felony charge like what he's been accused of. So what is the crime? And the crime, so the prosecution has alleged a number of different potential crimes, including crimes that have to do with election law, crimes that have to do with influence in election, and did Trump do this all in order to suppress information from the American public in order to get elected? Yes, of course he did. Otherwise, he would have. He doesn't care if people know he slept with a porn star. The only reason he cares is because he was worried that it might prevent him from winning the election. And we've actually got his personal assistant saying that on the record, that he was concerned about that, and he was happy that they managed to get them to silence them, all right? But is that a crime, right? And maybe it is at the federal level, but is that a crime at the state of New York level? Maybe, but it's very, very reaching and extending the line. I've seen a lot of what I think pretty objective writers about this say, look, yeah, maybe, but nobody prosecutes this stuff. This isn't stuff that goes to court as felony charges. This just doesn't make any sense, and never did make any sense. Indeed, when this first came to trial, this was clearly, and everybody admitted it, including people who don't like Trump, like me, that this is pretty weak and lame. And this is, of course, Briggs, right? This is a guy who won't prosecute muggers. So he's going to come into this convoluted thing about Donald Trump to prosecute him when he won't prosecute. He came into office saying he wasn't going to prosecute armed robbery. Remember, we did a show covering Briggs when he came into office, saying that he wasn't, unless there was actual violence, even the threat of violence didn't count. I mean, this is the worst. This guy, Briggs, is the worst of the progressive judges. I noticed that as I'm talking bad about Briggs, all the pro-Trump trolls have kind of, or I have troll is a nice word as compared to what I would say. I've disappeared. Whoops. He's saying, I agree with him. Ooh, what happened? Something must be wrong here. Maybe we've convinced him finally that Trump is the second coming. Anyway, Briggs is a bad guy, and clearly this is motivated by politics, but more than politics, I'd say. This was motivated by Briggs trying to make a name for himself. This is the Rudolph Giuliani method, of prosecution. That is, you don't prosecute people based on the nature of the crime, based on the severity of the crime, based on whether they even committed a crime. The Rudolph Giuliani method is you prosecute people based on what will get you the biggest headlines, what will get your name into the paper, what will get you your picture in the paper, even better, what will get you on Talk TV and everything else, so that maybe one day you can run for governor or something like that. Or mayor in the Rudolph Giuliani case. And of course, it worked really, really well for Giuliani up to a point. But that was his method during the 1980s, and a lot of people have tried, and Biggs clearly here is copying him, and this is not new. So this whole prosecution was geared towards doing what they could to cripple Trump, and of course to enhance the reputation, the visibility, the name recognition of a really, really bad guy, which is the district attorney Briggs, who is the worst of the kind of on the far edge of really, really bad progressive attorney generals who are slowly being elected out of office around the country. And he's still around, and he would like to be around for a long time, and he'll probably run when he runs next time on this conviction of Donald Trump, and what a hero to the progressive cause he is. So while there's no question Donald Trump is a scumbag, there's no question that Donald Trump, did what they claim he did. There's no question he falsified business records. The issue here is, first of all, there's nothing new here. We knew he was a scumbag. We knew how he treated women from, the recording that came out when he was running for the first time in 2016. So there's nothing new here. It's Bragg, not Briggs. Sorry, Bragg. Thank you, Ian, for correcting me. Bragg. What's his first name? I forget his first name, but Bragg. So we know Trump's character already. We know what a horrible person he is. If you didn't know that, you've been, I don't know, unconscious for the last 20 years. We know what an ignoramus, moron he is. And, this trial taught us nothing new about that. That was already all evident. But, it is sad, but not new and not surprising that somebody like Alvin Bragg, thank you, God, glad to serve you. I like that. Glad to serve you, and he serves me up the name. That worked nicely. Alvin Bragg, it's not surprising that somebody like Alvin Bragg would use the court system for both political means, but also to enhance his own name recognition and his own reputation. Trump actually, I think, is guilty of what he's being accused of in federal court over hiding the documents, the top secret documents, and potentially over the January 6th, but certainly over the document case. That is a easy case, I think, to show, and that's the kind of case, given that he hid it from the FBI and hid it for the government, that is the kind of case that he should really be prosecuted for and really be found guilty of, likely. But that case will never make it to court because it has a unbelievably, here the judge was friendly to the prosecution. The judge in the document case is unbelievably friendly to Trump. I mean, she goes out of her way constantly, over and over again, to rule in favor of Trump. And she has been so successful at doing that, that trial has been delayed and it won't happen because he'll pardon himself once he gets elected, or if he doesn't get elected, maybe then they'll prosecute him, but at that point, kind of who cares? So the real case is the document case. The real case is the January 6th case, because they clearly violated the law on real issues, on serious issues, on things that no president should be allowed to get away with. This one, I mean, all it did was it was entertaining, and another angle on the rotten character that Donald Trump has, and on how committed his fans are. This is just more proof that when Donald Trump said that he could kill somebody, shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, he would still get elected. His fans would still vote for him. I think that's absolutely right. He could exhibit the character flaws and people who call themselves the most worst character flaws possible, and people who call themselves objectivists would still not vote for him because maybe there's no choice because there are only two candidates, but embrace him and lobby for him and argue for him and support him and really love him and embrace him. So there you go. Rule of law. It is sad that this is being used, but this, as I said, this is not unusual. When people get excited by what Giuliani did in the 1980s, when people are willing to condemn Giuliani, which, by the way, what Giuliani did in the 1980s is far worse than what's being done to Donald Trump right now. And what Giuliani did in the 1980s was done to good people, productive people, valuable human beings. This is so much, minor as compared to that. You want the rule of law, then I want to see you stand up for the rule of law when it's inconvenient for you. I want to see you stand up for the rule of law, not when it just is an issue of the person you happen to worship. But I want to see you stand up for the rule of law when it's when it's much broader than that, when it's actually an issue of the rule of law, when it's actually taking innocent people, when it's actually accusing innocent people of crimes and sending them to jail and destroying their reputation. There's no reputation for Trump to be destroyed, and destroying their income and destroying their livelihood. Then I want you to see you standing up for those people. I don't see that. I see people rally around Trump mindlessly. That's what I see. And that's what I'm here to call out. And yes, this is an abuse of the rule of law. Add it to the long list of abuses of the rule of law by prosecutors, both on the left and on the right. This case, if you will, was prosecuted, was shopped to a particular prosecutor, right? How many times does the right shop its cases to get judges that are favorable to it? I mean, sadly, this is the state of American law. American law has become politicized. The rule of law has become the rule of men. And yes, both sides, because they're both sides guilty. And until we start making it clear that the fundamental problems in this country are not the problems of the left, not the problems of the right, but fundamental problems within this culture, within this political culture, but within this intellectual culture and within the culture of advocacy. Until we actually think about the ideas driving the corruption of this culture and stop being mindlessly tribal, then this culture will only get worse. Until we stop politicizing everything, this will only get worse. But this is what we're seeing, and what we're seeing in the response to this verdict is pure tribalism, and we're seeing it here on the chat. The people who love Trump, he can do no wrong. No court could ever convict Trump, and his fans would say, oh, yes, no, he's the bad guy, he should be convicted. That would never happen because that's against the tribal rules. And if you despise Trump, as the left does, the conviction is, of course, justified. It's not political. There was a real crime here. He should rot in jail for 50 years for this. And it's pure, unadulterated tribalism, nothing more than that. And so when anybody out there, and I see this, anybody out there tries to actually make a case one way or the other to what's going on, whoosh, right over people's head, because they're not interested in what actually goes on. They're interested in whether this reinforces what my tribe is supposed to think or doesn't, or it reinforces it's all tribalism. All tribalism. And that is the problem in American society. The problem in American society is not just there is a problem with our legal system, but the much deeper problem, and the reason our legal system is the way it is because of the unthinking tribalism that is now dominating American culture and American mentality and American approach to dealing with these kind of questions and these kind of issues. All right. I guess that was my talk for OCON. I'm supposed to do a talk for OCON about the state of American political culture. So how can I do? I need to come up with a whole 40 minutes of it instead of just a short one. Yeah, voting is going to change something. You really should read, not that I'm supportive of this, but you really should read Brian Kaplan's The Myth of a Rational Voter to understand how important your vote really is and how meaningful it is and how important it is that you really spend your time and your energy and your focus and your life focusing on who should I vote for? Oh my God, as if anybody cares who you vote for, as if it matters one way or another who you vote for. It doesn't. And ultimately, what matters are ideas. What matters are, are philosophical ideas, intellectual ideas, political ideas. And the political scene right now is neither one of them. Neither one of them have ideas. Yeah, I mean, I think not voting is, not a bad strategy at all. If you actually measure your impact by voting, it's much smaller, minuscule, even as compared to the impact I have on the culture with this show. So, all right, let's see. Ooh, the volume here is all wrong. Whoops. Luckily, I was yelling during the part of that show, so I know the podcast just went from soft to really, really loud. Sorry, guys, but I adjusted your volume to make it fit. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I didn't vote last election. I won't vote this election because I can't. But even if I could, I wouldn't vote this election. I didn't vote, in 2008. I've not voted more than I voted. And what difference has it made one way or the other? My vote did not elect anybody who was elected. I wish I had that power, but I don't. All right, Donald Trump. We will see in July 11th what happens. We will see on what basis he appeals. There are lots of things he can appeal on. He can appeal both on the fact that Stormy Daniels went into great details, steamy details, about what actually happened in the bedroom. Did they ever make it to the bed? Whatever. So that biased the jury. He could argue that it was irrelevant and the judge shouldn't have allowed her to speak so much. He could appeal whether there was an actual crime here. What is the actual felony? And I think that's a good basis on which to appeal this. He could, and the bottom line is, one line is, I don't think he'll spend any time in jail. I don't think he will go to jail. I don't think this judge is going to give him a jail sentence, but even if he does, I think it will be postponed until after the appeal. I think there is a good chance that this is going to be reversed on appeal. Maybe not at the New York level, at the New York State level, but certainly if it's appealed higher up at the federal level, I think it would be rejected. I think the case was always kind of a ludicrous case not the kind of case you would actually charge anybody with. And that always is suggestive of what, selective prosecution. And I think selective prosecution is something that if you look at that, I think that would be a basis for overturning this. All right, thank you, Tazy. Let's see. Thank you, James. And I guess breaking news is Biden made a statement. Let's see if I can find this so we can look. I know he was going to make a statement, but he's already made it. Biden delivers remarks on the Middle East. What were the remarks? Let's see. Shea says Israel. Yeah, so Israel has made another proposal vis-a-vis a ceasefire. This is, by the way, the consequence of civilians dying in Gaza is that Israel folds because it can't handle the heat of international pressure. Israel's offered a comprehensive new proposal that provides a roadmap to ceasefire in the war with Hamas in Gaza and the release of all hostages held by the terrorist group. The proposal was transmitted by Qatar to Hamas, and the first phase would last 6 weeks and include a full and complete ceasefire with withdrawal of Israeli forces from all populated areas of Gaza. Interesting what they mean by populated areas, all right? And release of a number of hostages, including women, the elderly, the wounded, in exchange for release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. He said the phase 2 would allow for the exchange for the release of all remaining living hostages, including male soldiers. In phase 3, the president said, a major reconstruction plan for Gaza would commence, and any final remaining hostages who've been killed will be returned to their families, I guess, bodies of hostages. Whereas I don't see, where is the part where Hamas disappears, goes away, leaves Gaza, is dismantled, where is any of that? Any of that? After saying how awful October 7th was, the president goes on and said the Palestinian people have endured sheer hell of this war as if they didn't deserve it. Too many innocent people have been killed. Too many, how do you measure that? He said that included thousands of children. By far too many have been badly wounded. We all saw the terrible images of the deadly fire. There it is. It's the deadly fire in Rafah earlier this week, following Israeli strikes targeting Hamas. Then he acknowledges this is subject to which people in this country feel deeply passionate convictions. This is the thing. All right. So, in other words, everything I said about this war has turned out to be true. But again, I'm sure in the minds of many of you, I will get no credit for it. It means that Netanyahu has folded to Biden and to the rest of the world pressure and to internal Israeli pressure, sadly, at leftist publications like Haaretz and the demonstrations in favor of releasing the hostages over winning this war. It means basically Israel has given up and that Hamas will still be ruling. It means that everything, if this is true and if this is accurate, it means that everything Netanyahu told us about the goals of the war and that they will never be compromised was from the beginning BS and was from the beginning just a charade to try to convince us to support him. It truly, it's hard to imagine how horrific this really is. This is clearly Biden playing to his left, although, again, it's, I actually literally do not think Trump would be doing anything different. But it's, he would be cutting a deal. Let's cut a deal. This is a deal. This is great. It's a deal. I think Biden wants us to go away before the election. Clearly, it's an issue he would like to see fold. It's an issue he would like to see disappear during the election. He doesn't quite care that much about anyway. So what he wants is to make the Israel issue go away. He also wants to appease the Saudis, and maybe he can pull off a miracle and get the Saudis to do a deal with Israel and with the United States before the election. I doubt that can happen this fast, but maybe. So you both get Biden deserting Israel, stabbing it in the back. You get Netanyahu deserting Israel, stabbing it in the back. The real horror here is the Israeli people, and of course all the soldiers who have died in Gaza, the 270 or so soldiers who've died in Gaza. I think that includes October 7th soldiers who died, so I'm not sure how many died actually in the operation in Gaza. But for what? So Hamas can come back? So they killed, I don't know, a third of our Hamas fighters, but now Hamas will come back. These are the consequences. So there you go. Much more important story than Trump's day in court, and a much sadder story, and much more impactful, not just on Israel, but on the United States. Because every time you appease the barbarians, every time you appease the terrorists, every time you appease the Islamists, you only embolden them. You only make them stronger, and you only. And it's and there's nobody in the U.S. I think that the best person by far on the issue of Israel was Nikki Haley. By far, it wasn't even close. I don't know if you saw her in Israel recently, writing on the bombs, finish them off, and things like that. She got into a lot of trouble for that. But Nikki Haley was rejected wholeheartedly by the Republican Party because the Republican Party has no stomach for the Israel issue anymore, really. I mean, mildly more than the Democratic Party, but they have no stomach for it. They're not interested in it. We'll get in a little bit to Candace Owen in a bit on this issue. All right. So that is the latest betrayal of an American president, of America, more importantly. Forget Israel. America. Just if you're interested to see what this leads to, there is a video online. I'm not recommending you watch it because it is really horrific and scary and blood curdling of a knife attack. I think this morning in Germany by a Muslim. Who basically attacked a critic of Islam in Mannheim, Germany. So he went after this critic of Islam, and then started stabbing the police who went after it. And finally, they shot him, but he managed to stab a number of people. But you should, I don't know, maybe everybody should watch this video because this is a video that really describes, it shows how maniacal these people are, how literally crazy they are. I mean, he is going after everybody with this big knife, and he's just stabbing people, and you can see him stabbing people. I mean, but you can see his eyes, you can see his face, you can see just the manic state that he is in, and. Somebody said he got shot by a homeowner. It looks like police are shooting him from the video I saw. There's a number of police around him, but there is some criticism of police for not having shot him earlier as he's doing the stabbing. But it does, if you watch the video, it does happen really. I'm not going to show it because it's a pretty disturbing video, but if you watch it, you should watch it. It's a pretty brutal video. It's pretty horrible. It shows the enemy Israel is facing. It shows the kind of people that raped and murdered and tortured people on October 7th. I mean, this is exactly the mentality. You see it in his face. You see it in his capacity to just lash out. Of course, the headlines are far-right activists and others hurt and stabbing in Mannheim. Doesn't mention who the stabber is. That's the headline in Euronews. So they're not going to mention he's a Muslim. You're not actually supposed to identify who they are and what their ideology is. Remember, George Bush told us and guaranteed to us and promised us that Islam is a religion of peace. yes, this is who we have. So somebody's knocking a hammer right above my head. This is where we are. This is how completely insane it is. You can find the videos on Twitter with some write-ups of it. As said, the incident sparked a lot of controversy on social media. Criticizing the police for taking so long to take him out. Yeah, an officer mistakenly attacked by a colleague. There, I don't understand that. Oh, anyway, the police in Europe are just very slow to act. They're too afraid. I mean, maybe that's also the case in the United States. All right, one of my favorite, I don't even want to call her an intellectual because she's not that, but one of my favorite commentators, I guess, in the world, maybe after Tucker Carlson, incredibly influential, has a massive following on Twitter. She has a following of 5.1 million people, 5.1 million people. Anyway, this is Candace Owen, as you know. Candace Owen is smart, Edward says. And she's smart, right? She's smart. I'm sure Edward follows her, and like so many, I guess I follow her. There you go. Not anymore. I just unfollowed her. Sometimes follow thy enemy, right? Candace Owen is nuts. I mean, she really has taken that turn into alt-right, complete crazy, complete nuttiness, so I'm going to read you a post she did. This is about the Russian Revolution of all things. This is an exchange she's having. Basically, she's blaming all the terror of the Russian Revolution on guess who? Guess who is responsible for the terror of the Russian Revolution? So she's talking about the people doing the horrors of the Russian Revolution. She writes, they were specifically chosen to impart terror on Russian Christians, and they were not Russian. Now, here's where she, this is where she's going to source the material. No, not atheists, Jennifer. Not atheists. No way. Much more ancient than blaming atheists. Out of 545 Bolshevik commissioners, 447 were Jews, and only 5% of which were even Russian. Many of the leaders changed their names so that they would be assumed Russian, so as to shift the historical blame. As we know, Stalin's real name was not Stalin. Lenin was not Lenin. And Trotsky, his name, was not Trotsky. It was Bornstein. Does that mean Lenin and Stalin were Jews? Huh. I mean, Trotsky was, but of course Trotsky wasn't liked. He was kicked out and ultimately murdered by Stalin. And then she says, because she's trying to be objective, I will grant you that Stalin's ancestry is still hotly debated. Just as an aside, no, it's not. My Georgian friends tells me that his real name, Jugashvili, literally translates into child of Judah. And that everyone in Georgia knows he was Jewish. But that is heresy and hardly admissible as a fact. But what we do know for a fact is that Stalin spoke Yiddish and that his 3 wives were all Jews. So it's somewhat difficult for me to imagine he was some sort of raging anti-Zionist, anti-Semite. I mean, I don't know. What do you do about this stuff? Stalin spoke Yiddish? I mean, this has to be the funniest thing ever. I mean, note that these raging, irrational, nutty, crazy, stupid, moronic anti-Semites, there's enough you can blame the Jews for. So you have to make stuff up. Stalin spoke Yiddish and his 3 wives were Jewish. He only had 2 wives. Didn't have 3, and they weren't Jewish. I mean, What? Continue. We also know that he and Lenin worked with Jews in America to plunder from the Russians and sell their artwork and jewelry jewelry in the States. That is how Arm & Hammer, Jewish family, earned their wealth. Arm & Hammer didn't earn his wealth from, anyway. Here in New York, here was a New York Times article about Lenin and Stalin's favorite American Jew. It's true. Arnold Hammer was very much linked to the communists, but this kind of interpretation is unbelievable. By the way, Arm & Hammer, his name is Arnold Armand Hammer. She says Arm and Hammer, intended as it sounds. His father, Julian, smuggled jewelry. I simply just don't understand your position here. She's debating something on Bolshevik Revolution. What am I saying that is deemed to be non-factual? Pretty much everything. What I'd like to get from you is an idea of whether or not you believe guilt can be collected. Is it fair to say Muslims have never tried to do anything but live their lives peacefully from a religious perspective, or Germans have never done anything wrong other than try to live their lives? From an ethnic perspective, God, if your argument is that once they commit a hideous crime, they are absolved of their ethnicity or religion, that is fine. I might agree with you there. I just want to make sure. But by the way, it's all Jews. Just so know my opinion, I think the people who executed the gulags were Satanists, not followers of Judaism at all. So they were Jews who were actually Satanists. Who said she was smart? Who was that? I know somebody here said she was smart. Edward said she was smart. Edward, that's smart. Yes, really, really smart stuff she has there. But she's good on something else, I'm sure. I'm sure she's great on other things. I'm sure given just the BS per sentence of this, you can trust everything Candace Owens writes on other issues. She is a source of wisdom and knowledge and truth, because, given this as a great example of reality. I mean, she is totally nuts. She is an anti-Semite. She is a creep, a weirdo. And the fact that she has 5.1 million followers, well, -1 because I just unfollowed her. I don't know, says something about the culture we're in. Something about, and I know, but she's anti the left. She's anti the left. Shouldn't we all just be willing to share be in one big anti-left, tent? Shouldn't I just, just look the other way about her anti-Semitism and about her nonsense and about her horrors and about everything else? Shouldn't I just look the other way and just embrace Candace Owen? Because look, after all, she is anti-left. As was, by the way, Hitler. Hitler hated the left. Hated the left. I mean, his whole campaign was about how bad the left was. All right, 5.1 million followers for that absolute, unequivocal nuttiness. Nuttiness. But Edward says she made some good points about Ukraine. Oh, wow. Wow. I'm impressed. Anybody who writes that kind of garbage with that density, you cannot take seriously on anything. On anything. I'm sure Hitler made some good points about the communists. I'm sure he did. There's no question. So let's follow Hitler and just listen to him. Right? And I'm using Hitler now to compare her to him, but just as an example of the absurdity and nuttiness of the position of, but. Grow up, people. Grow up, people. All right, what else do we have here? Oh, yeah. So young people in America, it's a funny story. Young people, there was a survey of young people in America, and a huge percentage of them basically think America is awful, terrible. America is a dying empire led by bad people. And 51% agree that the U.S. political system doesn't work for people like me, which, by the way, I agree with. I would say that too. And 64% support the idea that America's in decline. Me too. I also agree that America's in decline. Only 26% think it matters who wins the next election. I'm with them. I'm with the majority there. I don't think that matters that much, not in the long run. Now, I'm not. So what do we attribute this? What do we attribute this deep pessimism about our political system? Doesn't work for me. Majority. America's in decline. A majority. Doesn't really matter who wins the. Doesn't think it matter who wins the. 26% think it does matter. So, which means, I don't know how many people said they don't know. So I don't have that number. But supposedly a majority thinks that it doesn't matter, which I agree with. Maybe I misspoke. Anyway, what do you think explains this? Could it be that what explains this is that we have a presidential election where we get to choose between Joe Biden and Donald Trump? Could it be that what explains this is the imbecility and tribalism and just the low level of political dialogue in this country? Could that be? Could it be maybe that they hold these views because the U.S. economy is it has positives, but it's generally the government is running unbelievable debts. Sections of the economy are doing horribly. The economy is growing, but it doesn't feel like it. We've got inflation. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe it's the mixed economy. Maybe. But what do people blame this on? Well, I can tell you what Barry Weiss, who I generally like, blames it on. Barry Weiss blames it on the Chinese propaganda machine. Basically, she blames it on TikTok. Now, I am not very susceptible to Chinese propaganda. I'm sure I'm exposed to some of it, although I never go on TikTok. And yet, I hold the same views, basically. God, I mean, this is the same problem. It's the same attitude that got Trump elected. Maybe it's an attitude that works. Observe a problem in the United States, blame it on the other. I wouldn't be surprised if the real reason American young people have a negative view of America is illegal immigration. It's those Mexicans. Well, they're not Mexicans. Guatemalans, Venezuelans, Chinese. No, it's TikTok. But it's basically the other. Never take responsibility. Never actually say, maybe there's something rotten with American culture. Maybe there actually is something rotten with our politics and our political process. Maybe it's, our mixed economy. Maybe our mixed economy is what is causing these kids to be depressed and to be so negative about America. But no, it's the Chinese and the Muslims and the South Americans and anybody who doesn't look quite like us. They're the ones. They're the ones doing it. Again, more testament to the quality of the political debate, political interaction in America today. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Oh, this is a funny one. We have a bunch of stories, a bunch of good stories. This is a funny one. So it turns out that some people on the left have noticed, on the kind of borderline, on the woke left, have noticed something alarming. They've noticed that if they, the people on the woke left, happen to be white and male, even if they're gay, if they happen to be white and male, and let's say they're in academia and have a PhD, and maybe even written a bunch of books and some good articles and, really doing really well by every objective criteria, they have noticed suddenly, they still have no job prospects. They cannot get a job. It's very depressing. And suddenly, they're realizing why they can't get a job. Because all the jobs are going to people, and I don't want to specify genders here because it would just be wrong, who happen to be on the, on the more oppressed side and the intersectionality dimensions. They can't get a job. So there's a progressive influencer by the name of David Austin Walsh, really prominent, but, commentating on political topics. He has a postdoctorate from Yale. So he's done a doctorate and a postdoc at Yale. He owned a PhD from Princeton. He's written a book on the dangers of the American right. And he cannot find a full-time academic job. And this is what he's saying. Isn't this amazing? He says, quote, I'm 35 years old. I'm 4+ years post-PhD. And quite frankly, I'm also a white dude. Combine those factors together, and I'm, for all intents and purposes, unemployable as a 20th century American historian. And he goes on and says, I applied to something like 40 jobs this year. All but 4 of them were African American and or race ethnicity positions. And despite my work explicitly being about white supremacy, I stand no chance of being hired for those positions. Don't you feel sorry for this guy? Fully qualified. And suddenly, they, other white men on the left are suddenly saying, whoa, wait a minute. I thought this discrimination stuff wasn't against us. Asians, okay, but us? That's not fair. And this is making the rounds on the left, right? And this is, again, goes back to my point about at some point woke disintegration, it becomes so nutty, so crazy, that even the people who maybe a few months ago were promoting it are suddenly going, whoa, okay, maybe not. Maybe it's gone too far. Maybe this is too much. So somebody in the New Republic writes, it's anecdotal for sure, but I personally was told multiple times by insiders in job searches, things like, quote, they'll never hire a white man. We can't give it to a white man in this climate. A white man who studies European history is dead on arrival, etc. And he says he's so qualified, and yet he can't get a job. Even at the Jacobin magazine, they're upset, right? And of course, all these people complaining on the left, are now being canceled. So they're rushing to, oh, I didn't really mean it. I didn't really do this. But it's out. It's out of the bag. Because they couldn't get a job in academia, but if they had a chance of getting any kind of job from a leftist magazine or leftist publication or leftist think tank, by criticizing the left, by criticizing affirmative action, they've given up on that chance as well. So there you go. The left canceling the left. It's very just. Leftists can't find jobs because they're white males. That is very much consistent with justice. All right, before we go on, let me remind you all, this is a listener-supported show. This cannot exist without your support. You can support the show if you're listening live right now, and we've got almost 200 people listening live right now. You can support the show by using the super chat feature on your phone or in your browser to ask a super chat question and put some money with it, or just to do a sticker and support the show. Indeed, with 200 people online right now, we shouldn't have any problem reaching our daily goal. This show is going to go on for another 2 hours, so there's plenty of time, but sooner is better than later. So please, before you leave, consider leaving a few bucks here. It could be $2, it could be $1, it could be $10, $5, it could be just a cappuccino from Starbucks. You can leave it right here to help fund the show. Of course, for those of you not watching live, of course, because I'm asking for money, people are leaving in droves. Those of you not watching live, please consider becoming a monthly supporter of the show on Patreon, on PayPal. You can also do on PayPal. You can do a one-time gift to the Yaron Brook Show. You can go to yaronbrookshow.com/member to do that. Some of you also can use the feature, the Super Chat feature, to gift memberships. Tomorrow, members-only show at 2 p.m. East Coast time. Tomorrow, members-only show will be on on sculptures of women. Female, primarily nudes, because I believe sculpture should be done in the nude primarily. But I'll be showing quite a few sculptures, and some of them you've never seen, and all of them are stunningly beautiful. I mean, really, really amazing sculptures. I'll be showing them on the show tomorrow. It'll be at 2 p.m. You can become a member right here you have to be a member on YouTube. It doesn't work if you're a member on some other app. And here, I suggest you should become a member at the minimum rate, $4.99, and you get on. We'll see if when YouTube hears that I'm showing nudes, they get upset at me. I see some of my people in the chat upset, but that's okay. You will get out of it. But to do that, you have to pony up, $4.99, or one of you can gift some memberships, and some of the people here could say. So it's just going to be about beautiful sculpture, why I enjoy sculpture, why I love sculpture. We've done this in the past. This time the focus will be on female nudes, partially because there's an interesting history here. The Greeks, for example, didn't do female nudes for a very long time. It came very late. They did male nudes, plenty of them, but very few females. So it is, and in Renaissance, if you think about Renaissance sculpture, the only females who are usually being raped or molested by some bulky guy, but there's almost nothing that is just the female. Anyway, this is if you're interested in that topic, interested in asking questions, interested in participating, tomorrow 2 p.m. East Coast time, you can join us here and do it. All right, let's see. Gavin Newsom, California. So in March of 2023, Gavin Newsom promised that the state of California would build 1,200 tiny homes, really, really small homes. And they would build them really, really fast, because this was a way to solve the homeless problem. They would build them really, really fast, and they would show that this is doable. Basically, he made the promise in March, and he said, the homes are going to be done by the fall. Just to quote him, we're hoping to get them constructed in a matter of months, not years. I wanted to say this summer, but my staff said the press will attack if we fall short, so we're saying the fall. Well, it's what? This is again from the Free Press, from Barry Weiss's publication. It's now May 2024. And of the 1,200 tiny homes, how many do you think are being built? Yeah, you're probably right, exactly 0. Newsom's senior advisor on homelessness rights said, quote, when it comes to projects like this, tiny home-like projects, it's not just going to happen overnight. You have a whole process that you go through called regulations. She then argued that there's no holdup. It's all progress. We're getting there. We'll build the tiny homes. There will be tiny homes. We promised you the tiny homes are coming. Oh, Mark Tenassi. I haven't seen Mark in a long time. It's good to see you here. Thank you. And that's very, very generous. Marked at 100 pounds. Thank you. Next time in London, we should get together. It's been too long. It's been too long. It's nice to see you here. And he says, I'm getting more value from you, Yaron, than this donation. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. All right. That is California for you. By the way, this story was also connected to another story about the electric car charging stations. You remember I talked about that story a while back, where the Biden administration had tens of thousands of these. They've allocated gazillions of dollars for it in one of the bills. And, at the time when I told you about the story, I think there was 0 had been constructed. Well, you'll be happy to know that since then, they've constructed maybe there are 6, 7. They promised, Pete Buttigieg, whatever his name is, the Secretary of Transportation, has promised that there's many, many more coming online soon, any day now. But yes, billions and billions of dollars. Tesla does this really fast, and they've got a lot of charging stations out there. But then Elon Musk at some point decided to fire the whole team that actually constructs the charging stations. And then he had to hire some of them back because he realized he made a mistake. And I think Elon Musk is suffering from doing too much, too many different things too fast syndrome. But I guess that is how he lives his life, and I'm not sure he is capable of living it any other way. All right, here's a funny, sad, pathetic story. All right, here's what happens. It turns out that in the state of Illinois, this is again from Barry Weiss, in the state of Illinois, it turns out that if you are a victim of a crime, like a violent crime, if you're a victim of a violent crime, and you are an illegal immigrant, you will be fast-tracked, you will get special immigration status, and you will be fast-tracked into becoming an immigrant. So what do you think, what kind of incentives does that create, right? So you're an illegal immigrant. If you get mugged, or if you have like an armed robbery, then you can be, and the police come and they report it and everything, and you can apply for special immigration status. Well, you can expect that some enterprising illegal immigrants will stage the crimes. They will actually, hire people. It's worth it. Hell, you become an immigrant. You become a citizen. They actually hire people to stage armed robberies of themselves. Please, come at me with a gun in order to do this. Now, of course, there's a problem with that. And that is that sometimes these things go wrong, right? How do they go wrong, for example? Well, in one case, some passerby who happened to be armed kind of stepped in and killed one of the fake robbers. It's a very dangerous profession to be a fake armed robber. In another, a liquor store employee was shot in a fake robbery. I'm not sure who did the shooting. Anyway, this is funny and sad because it's very depressing. Here are illegal immigrants living in Illinois who could work. My guess is they do work. My guess is they're quite productive. They have jobs. They hold down jobs. And yet, we don't give them special immigration status for working. We only give special immigration status if they're victims of a crime. Now, if that's not altruism, some bizarre, twisted form of altruism, I don't know what is. Again, why not give them special, expedited immigration status for going to work, for being good people. Yeah, Tazy says, this is definitely a Coen Brothers movie. I mean, absolutely. I can see the whole plot now. I mean, this is, and it spirals out of control. And like by the time the movie's over, like 1,000 people are dead and and blood is all over the place. And at this, and probably the final shot of the movie would be these illegal immigrants who initiated this whole thing swearing allegiance to the United States and becoming citizens. After people are dead and, decapitated and burned alive, all this stuff is happening because they initiated these fake robberies, but they make it to citizenship. And that would be some very cool, dark Coen brothers. Somebody should write a screenplay and sell it to the Coen brothers. Although they write their own screenplays, I guess. Talk about immigration. It turns out there's another place in which, I mean, as bad as Americans think America is, as bad as Americans think that America is, we talked about that earlier, people outside of America still want to come here. People outside of America still think America is a pretty cool place, a pretty amazing place to live. And that includes, and I know this will shock you because this is one of the great, most nicest places in the world to live, but that includes Canadians. It turns out the Canadians are migrating to the United States at record numbers. The number of immigrants into the United States from Canada is up 70% from a decade ago. Where do they want to go? They're all going to South Florida. Now, there are a couple of reasons for this. One, God, how can you live in the cold of Canada? I mean, it's just bone-chilling and depressing. So it is not at all surprising that that Canadians want to get out of there and want to go to Florida and engage and live with some nice, warm weather. But it is also the case that Canada is losing its freedoms fast. Now, Canada is still a good place for third world people to immigrate to, but Canada is a pretty lousy place, even as compared to the United States, even in the United States in decline. So that Canadians are leaving because the cost of living is just through the roof. Canadian real estate is unbelievably expensive because, the government in Canada has passed these horrific speech laws and anti-free speech and hate speech, just horrific. And generally, I think people have decided that enough is enough. And, a lot of Canadians are now moving south to the United States, in particular Florida, getting some sunshine. And Florida still builds homes, so prices are not going up quite as fast as the places where you don't build homes. Remember, the increase in housing costs are primarily driven by lack of supply. Florida seems to have, relatively speaking at least, loose regulations on housing supply, on building. I just came back from Miami, for Big Hill in Miami, and there's skyscrapers going on everywhere, all condo buildings. Now, half of them are owned by rich people from Latin America, but if you're an American, you can get a nice condo there for a reasonable price because they just build. They match supply with demand. Finally, about immigration, the White House, the Biden White House, is finalizing a plan to clamp down on the U.S.-Mexico border to stop all these asylum requests and deny entry to migrants after a certain number is reached on a daily basis. So to dramatically reduce the number of asylum seekers crossing the U.S.-Mexican border, Biden is going to sign an executive order to achieve that probably in the next few days. Remember, the number one issue that Americans say they are most concerned about, the number one issue they are most concerned about is not the economy. It's not, it's not the fact that their kids can't read or do math or think for themselves. So it's not our educational system. It's not any of this other stuff. it is immigration. And I think what you will see is what Biden will probably sign is about as tough as I think Trump would sign, because there's only so much you can do by executive order. So I don't think this is any weaker than Trump, although Biden's not building a wall. Thank goodness he's not wasting money on that. But the number of illegal crossings in the U.S.-Mexico border has already declined over the last few months. I think it will decline significantly, at least before the election. Biden has a clear incentive to do that. If the issue is immigration, if that was the most important issue on the table right now, then I would be actively lobbying for Biden. I mean, I cannot think of a president worse on the immigration issue, a president candidate, never mind a president, worse on the immigration issue than Donald Trump. I mean, rounding up 12, 15, 20 million people in the United States, rounding them up, putting them in holding pens, in camps. I mean, God, the violation of individual rights that entails, the horror that brings to America, the disgusting police state conditions that creates in this country. Encouraging people to tell on other people that might not be documented that ain't in the United States. I cannot think of a worse, more disgusting, horrible proposition that anybody in this election is proposing than that. It is truly disgusting, truly disgusting. And imagine what it would take to round up 10 million people. I mean, of course, they won't be able to, but imagine what it would take to try it. What kind of enforcement mechanisms, what kind of little police force you would have to build. How large you would have to make the immigration, whatever agencies, to enforce the rounding up. I mean, ICE already little Nazis. Imagine if ICE got the kind of power that Donald Trump wants to give them in rounding people up. Yes, the corruption, everything else. It would be unbelievable. It would be the most un-American thing any American has ever done, any American president has ever done. And then they're wasting the money on a stupid wall and pretending that you're doing something. It's a horrible thing to do to America. So on immigration, I'll take Biden all day long. I'll take a weak president over Donald Trump all day. The most un-American thing you can imagine is rounding up into camps illegal immigrants. And again, people who want to call themselves objectivists are arguing for this. They think this is a good thing. Having employers, pointing out who their employees are who are illegal, so they can be rounded up by the local ICE agents. ICE is also a good name for them. It's horrific, disgusting, anti-American, and it's one more step towards police state status. And for that to be the cornerstone policy of a president running, so be it. To intern them for what? What crime have they committed? Talk about felonies. What felony have they committed? Whose rights have they violated? Where's the rights violation? Whose rights did they violate? They violated my rights? Did they slap me in the face? Did they take my property? Whose rights are being violated that would justify the massive rounding up of people? And again, it's unthinkable that this would be something that people would support and advocate for and chew on, and this would be the number one issue. We live in scary times, my friends, very scary times where I can't even tell who the good guys are and who the bad guys are anymore. All right, let's move on to some, I don't know, semi-positive stuff. Not really. Elon Musk has just raised money for his new, what do you call it, AI company. It's called XAI. He's raised a paltry sum, just $6 billion. We'll talk about why you have to raise so much money for AI. $6 billion in the latest fundraising round. I mean, that's a lot of money. I remember when, if you raise $10 million, that was a lot. $6 billion. That's not that funny, Robert. Anyway, he has promised us that he will create an anti-woke AI, a woke AI to compete with Google's woke AI. So we will have a choice between woke AIs and anti-woke AIs, and AIs that claim not to be woke and not to be anti-woke, that will be neither or both or whatever. Anyway, it's gonna be interesting. I'm looking forward to XAI. I'm looking forward to the competition. I think this is pretty amazing that he raised $6 billion, because I think we all benefit when we get this kind of competition. Let's not leave it just to the Googles and Microsoft to develop AI. Let's get a bunch of people doing this. And for those who think that Google and Microsoft and all these big tech are monopolies, well, monopolies you can't compete against, and here is Musk competing with them. And now with his own money, because it's not his $6 billion, he's raised capital, because the reality is that there is always capital available. There's always capital available for people who would like to actually compete. Compete with the big tech, compete with the big guys. So good for Musk. And, I'm excited. I'm excited about... we'll talk about it. I'm very excited about AI. Let's see. Downside of AI. Let's quickly talk about one of the downsides that everybody's panicking about. So FBI Director Christopher Wray is warning that what we're going to see in terms of misinformation, false news, fake news on social media this time around, starting now and probably already happening, is going to be just nothing as compared to the past. That is, various actors, including the Chinese, the Iranians, the Russians, are using AI right now. Indeed, OpenAI just revealed that Russia, China, and Iran are using AI. It's AI. They're using ChatGPT to create bots that are very difficult to identify, right? Because they are, FBI Director Christopher Wray is a kind of a Democrat, so don't trust anything he says. So just forget about the story. It doesn't matter, because can't. Anyway, the reality is that these chat boxes can now mimic a human being. They can present themselves as human. They can speak like a human being. They can interact by text or by voice like a human being. You can set them up and then let them loose. You don't have to create the memes for them. They can create the meme themselves. They can work on creating a meme. So you can just let it go. The Russians, Chinese are very good at this. The Iranians are good at this. I'm sure the Israelis are good at this. You're going to see a flood of stuff out there that it's going to be very, very, very difficult to differentiate between what is true and what is not, what is fake news and what is real. And I think the services themselves, are going to have a very hard time, I mean, social media themselves, very hard time differentiating between what are propaganda bots and what are actual, real human beings. If in the past, the Russians and the Chinese had to have rooms full of people clicking along, producing fake news and distributing it, now all they have to have is a ChatGPT programmed properly, and it can generate thousands of these. It could pretend to be thousands of people all at the same time. All at the same time. So, I mean, we've really entered a new era where AI is going to contribute an enormous amount to human success and human flourishing. But at the same time, AI is going to be used by enemies in a variety of different ways to attack us. And while I don't consider information a rights violation, so if somebody wants to set up a bot that spews out lies on social media, I don't think that's a crime. I think that the social media should screen them out, not because it's a crime, but because they're trying to run a good business and they're trying to run a clean business. But it's not a crime. It's still disruptive. It's still not pleasant. It's still not good that this stuff is happening. And the bad guys are going to, just like most technology from the 80s on really got a bump because of porn. So because of something negative, the technology really advanced fast and moved forward, right? And got better and better and better and fast and fast and fast. And I think porn is going to use AI as well, quite and push the technology forward. I think in this case, this misinformation industry, the misinformation, misinformation what? Countries that are dedicated to this and are willing to put billions of dollars into this, they are going to spur dramatic innovation in AI, including cloning people's voices, cloning people's video, make people, you won't be able to tell. You always want to go, let's go to the source, but you won't even be able to tell if the source is real. So, I mean, they're real challenges. This is not pretend. So AI poses real challenges. Now, I just think it poses unbelievable prospects and some amazing good things that can and will happen because of AI, including curing diseases and managing to solve scientific problems and math problems and including creating an amazingly efficient, at your beck and call personal assistant. That's the one I'm waiting for. I just have to think it, and it's already done. That's what I'm waiting for. And there's a bunch of these things that can happen, and I think they're going to happen. I think just having an assistant say, "Hey, I need to go to Miami," arrange it, and the assistant will look at my emails and know when I have to go, when I have to arrive. It knows already what hotels I like to stay at. It knows what airlines I like to use. It has my credit card. It has my frequent flyer numbers. And it just comes back like 5 seconds later and saying done. And I know that it's been optimized. I could have it doing, a million different operations all at the same time. Time is no issue because you can parallel process. So the potential here is really quite astounding, quite unbelievable. I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to it. As I told you, I think we're months, not years, months away from having a Yaron Brook clone who will stand right next to me and we'll have a discussion about the coming elections. That'll be really spooky. Talk about spooky. That is going to be really spooky. All right. So anyway, a lot of this AI revolution, and I do think it's going to be an economic revolution, A lot of this revolution is going to require massive, truly massive computing power. And this really explains why, NVIDIA, the chip manufacturer, and they don't really manufacture chips. They design chips. The manufacturing is done by the same group that manufactures all chips, which is TSMC. But NVIDIA, which designs these chips, NVIDIA has done so well. NVIDIA right now has a market capitalization. That is, if you take the number of shares, multiply by the price, of just below $3 trillion. Trillion. And its stock is up threefold over the last 12 months. It just reported $26 billion of revenue, which is up 18% from the last quarter of 2023, up 262% from the year earlier. And this is a really fascinating story because NVIDIA, for those of you who know a little bit about chips, NVIDIA designed graphic chips. NVIDIA chips were in like computers that specialized in graphics. If you wanted to do high-end graphics, then you used NVIDIA chips, and they were designed, and architecture was designed for visuals, right? For graphics, for gaming computers, for things like that. A few years ago, it became clear that the architecture, and I don't know anything about this, so I am just telling you what I've read. In this sense, I am super ignorant about the chip design. But it became clear a few years ago that these graphic chips, something about the logic in the logic board on these chips, in the way, the 0 1s worked on the logic chips, the gates work on the logic chips, actually was much better facilitating AI, particularly the AI learning, and then the AI inference, the AI responding based on that learning, than conventional, chips that are in your computer, that are in my Mac or in your, PC. And NVIDIA started selling chips to companies that specialized in AI, for example, OpenAI. And they provided, in a sense, the boxes, the computers that powered OpenAI and powered the AI, the first AI chatbots that we've seen. Ian says we should talk chips at Ocon. Absolutely. But don't assume that I will learn anything. Ian says, it's all floating point calculations, similar to what is done for graphics. That is what AI does. Floating point calculations. But you know what? How I hold floating point calculation? I hold that as a floating abstraction. I have no idea what that means. I really don't have any idea what that means. I mean, it's a concept in math. I guess I should know from my math days, but I don't remember. I used to program. I know it's hard to believe, but I was a programmer a long, long time ago. But even programmers don't know how computers work. I have no idea how. I mean, I kind of get the basic principle of how a chip works. But the idea of like a chip having hundreds of billions of transistors on it, it's not something that I can in any kind of way make real to myself. I hold it, I know it, and I don't doubt that it's true, right? But it's not something that I can actually hold. So David Austin, I want to clarify this for me. He says it's matrix operations. Floats are involved. So I get matrix operations. I vaguely remember matrix and matrices and doing math with matrices. I have no idea what that means or what it is today, but I did it, right? I used to be good at it. I was good at math a long, long time ago. But what a float has to do with all of that, I have no idea. So again, But this is fine. I don't need to know it. I have no inferiority complex about not knowing this, and I don't think you should either. It's the same thing about quantum mechanics. I don't know quantum mechanics. I don't understand quantum mechanics. I have no problem with quantum mechanics. You guys deal with quantum mechanics and chips and processors and all this stuff, right? Anyway, I didn't struggle with linear algebra. I was good at linear algebra. I was good at math. Anytime I tried, that is, I actually studied math, I put my mind to it, I was good at it. Usually I didn't put my mind to it because I wasn't that interested. But, anyway, I don't need to know that stuff. It doesn't, and I don't think you should be worried about not knowing it. It's exciting that it exists. It excites me, and I have a huge appreciation for the fact that some of you guys know what it is, right? Because that makes progress possible. I'm a big proponent, if you don't know this about me, huge proponent of division of labor. Division of labor. Ian says it's just a large amount of linear algebra. Okay, I get linear algebra, but now take linear algebra into a chip. What does the two have to do with each other? How does a chip do linear algebra? But don't try to explain it to me because I don't care. I know it happens. I don't really care. Anyway, NVIDIA. It basically sells its chips that are now used for AI into data centers. Everybody's building data centers for AI right now. If you think about the cloud, what the cloud really is, whether it's an Amazon cloud, a Google cloud, a Microsoft cloud, a Apple cloud, a cloud is just a data center. Well, if you think about with AI now, those clouds are going to have to be able to do AI. And a lot of forward-looking companies have already designed them in order to AI them. But all those data centers are going to have to do AI. So you've got Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, all massively investing in upgrading and building new data centers, all with the latest and greatest AI chips. Now, NVIDIA is the dominant player here, but just like with AI itself, there is a massive amount of money going into competitors to NVIDIA. And God, I love this stuff. I mean, I think it's so exciting to watch capitalism, when you leave markets a little bit free, to watch capitalism in action, right? To watch it actually happen. It is super exciting. And here you're seeing, with NVIDIA, you're seeing, in a sense, capitalism in action. You're seeing the competition in action. You're seeing that also in, what do you call it, with AI more broadly. And the consequence of this is that you're going to see massive progress. You're going to see super advancement. This is all happening at the same time as TSMC and ISML. ISML is the company that produces the machines that TSMC uses to make the most advanced chips in the world. They keep plugging along, so they are making thinner and thinner and thinner chips. They are basically allowing for Moore's Law. Moore's Law is the doubling of speeds of chips every year. Maybe now it's every 2 years, but it's still a doubling of speeds on an ongoing basis, and there doesn't seem to be an end to it. People always say, no, I mean, the physics of it, there has to be an end. It's going to end. It's going to end any day now. It's now, Moore's Law is done. It's the doubling of transistors on a chip. I have heard the end of Moore's Law is just around the corner since Moore's Law was invented. So for 40 years now, we've been hearing that. Certainly over the last 25 years, you've heard it regularly. And yet they keep doing it, and now they're talking about three-dimensional chips. So, the chip, you can have these doubling of transistors by adding a dimension to it. Anyway, I don't know. It's just, to me, just amazing. The progress, the ability to create progress. Now, think about this. NVIDIA is not only selling into Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta in the United States. But they're also selling to France, Germany, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, and many other countries that are also building data centers whose main internet companies are building data centers. They're not selling into China, at least they're not selling their most advanced chip into China, because the United States has an embargo on selling these advanced chips to the Chinese. Not a tariff, an actual embargo. You're not allowed to sell the Chinese these most advanced chips. And therefore, China has to build much bigger data centers. That is, it has to combine many more computers, many more chips, because each one of the chips is a lot less powerful than the chips that NVIDIA, the latest, greatest cutting-edge chips that NVIDIA and others are producing in the United States. David says, NVIDIA execs even cheered on the end of Moore's Law a few years ago. Yes, I mean, everybody has. Even Intel, at some point, Moore was, of course, at Intel when he came up with Moore's Law. And even Intel has questioned whether they can keep going. And to some extent, Intel hasn't kept up. Intel hasn't been the one at the forefront of this technology to keep Moore's Law alive. It has been TSMC that's kept that up. It's been ISML. And even though the technology that ISML uses in order to keep at the forefront of chip manufacturing technology was ideas that came out of Intel a long time ago. Intel has just lost that being at the forefront, being at the cutting edge. Maybe it'll regain it. It's getting a lot of money from the Biden administration in order to regain it. Anyway, what this all adds up to is we are gaining just a massive amount of computing power. They're calling this compute, just compute. According to Amazon's official documentation, compute means a generic term used to reference processing power, memory, networking, storage, and other resources required for computational success, for the computational success of any program. So that is what compute means, and we're seeing computing, the resources, the capacity, the power just explode. It's just mind-boggling. The size of this and the level of investment. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars. Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta have set aside $75 billion to build these new data centers, which are super exciting. All right. Let's see. Now, all of this also means that, again, all of this computing power is needed for basically two tasks. One task is to actually train the model, right? An AI model. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. An AI model is basically a statistical kind of model that basically is flooded, is just gets a ton load of data, which is then, there's an algorithm that goes through it and tries to draw out similarities, things that go together, and that's how these things are built. But in order to get a computer to do what we do, not really what we do, but mimic what we do, to look like what we do, requires massive amounts of computation. A standard laptop would need several thousand years of training to build a model like GPT-3, that's the old GPT, to reach that level of performance. GPT-3 was actually trained on the equivalent of one of the 5 largest supercomputers in the world. We're going to get to electricity, Ed, in a minute, right? Now we have much more complex models like GPT-4, GPT-4o, which use much more computing power to train GPT-3 probably cost somewhere around $10 million. By the way, this is a story I'm reading. The Dispatch, I really like the Dispatch because like Free Press, I really find Free Press and the Dispatch, what I like about them is they started out as these little newsletters. They started out as just a blog of alternative views. And what they become, both the Dispatch and Free Press, they have become basically media outlets. You can now go to the front page of the Dispatch, and it's like a newspaper. It has stories, it has commentary, it has so much interesting stuff. It's like a newspaper. And what's happened is these have become real alternative media, not just people think Dispatch, the conservatives, the anti-Trump conservatives, which of course I like, but they're not just for that. They have science news, technology news, they have commentary in the media, they have different points of view, they have different perspectives. It's actually a really good source. I mean, I would rather read the Dispatch than pretty much any other news source. And anyway, they had a story on NVIDIA and their quota and on this idea of computing and the extent of it. And I thought, this is interesting stuff. This is cool stuff. So I'm reading, a lot of this is coming from that story. Anyway, GPT-3 cost about $10 million to train. GPT-4 cost about $100 million to train. You see why these companies need a lot of money to make this stuff work. Now, in addition to that, these things use up amazing amounts of electricity. Amazing amounts of electricity, and that is just going to explode. In the United States, the electricity consumption by data centers is going to continue to increase. Right now, it's about 200 terawatt per hour, which is around 4% of US electricity usage. Within 2 years, it'll be 6%, and who knows where it goes from there, given the plans in terms of data centers that everybody has in terms of building those. The other interesting thing about the electricity issue is it's a huge expansion, but the expansion is geographically concentrated. Basically, 3 states are attracting 62% of all new investments. Attracting most of them: California, Texas, and Virginia. So drop to 62%. I misread the sentence. But California, Texas, and Virginia get a ton of this new investment. And yet, they need to have a grid. They need to have power plants and a grid that can actually supply this electricity. And they're asking local utility companies for generating capacity. But, you know, to fulfill this generating capacity, you would have to build several nuclear reactors. And we know that in the United States, it takes about about decades to build a nuclear reactor. Where's this going to come from? We're not going to build more fossil fuels. Can you imagine trying to provide electricity for all these data centers using the sun or the wind? What happens when it's not sunny and not windy? We don't get our AI. So it's, right now, there are about 8,000 data centers around the world, a third in the United States, 16% in Europe. The United States and Europe have old infrastructure, old electrical infrastructure. Tom says we're going to get the electricity from thorium. Who's going to get the electricity from thorium? Who? Who's going to build it? Where are the plans? Where's the regulatory approval? Untested new technology. How long will it take in the United States just to get the regulatory approval? Never mind to build the thing and to hook it up to the network. Decades. Decades. You either get this electricity from natural gas or you don't get it. That's the reality. Because by the time we build small nuclear power plants and they get approved and all that, by the time we build thorium, by the time we do, I don't know, fission, it's years. Tom says the U.S. has had it running in the 1950s. Yeah, but we're not in the 1950s. Right? We're not in the 1950s. NVIDIA's competitors include, by the way, in terms of designing chips for AI, OpenAI is going to design their own chips. Apple is designing their own chips. Meta is going to deploy its own chips later this year in its data centers. Google just released the Axion chip, which is a direct competitor to NVIDIA. So I, for one, am now rushing to buy NVIDIA stock only because I see this competition. Maybe NVIDIA is going to blow them all out of the water and be the dominant player forever. But competition is there. So, this is amazing. It's happening in spite of, not because of. Oh, by the way, the government has a plan. The government has a plan to build its own AI chip. I mean, I wonder if they can build an AI chip faster than they can build a tiny home. What do you think? AI chip, tiny home. AI chip, tiny home. What can they do faster? AI chip, electric car charging station. AI chip, electric, what's going to be quicker? Troy just came in with the 500 Australian. Thank you, Troy. Really, really appreciate it. That is terrific. Thank you. I need to come to Australia and thank you in person. We need to arrange for me a trip to Australia. We should, if anybody out there who's listening to this show from Australia and you'd like to bring me out to do a speaking tour in Australia, I mean, it'll cost money, but and please drop me an email if you're ready to put a fund together so that I can do a tour of Australia and I can come up and see all you guys and say hello and do stuff like that. I've been to Australia before. I've spoken in Sydney a long time ago, but it's been a long time. But yeah, it would be. I'm thinking a trip sometime early 2025 to Australia would be pretty cool, and if we can raise the money to fund it, that would be phenomenal. Anyway, would love to be able to say thank you to you guys, or particularly to Troy, in person one day. Let's see. Anyway, this has a neural engine inside of it, which is supposed to be ready for AI, and Apple in iOS 18 is supposedly going to be integrating an OpenAI application into the iPhone. So I will have my AI assistant right here on the phone. So it's these are exciting times. They're exciting times. They're exciting times for those of you, I think, in the tech industry. They're exciting times for us outside the tech industry that are going to use the tech. And it's really so exciting to see that in spite of the world in which we live, in spite of Biden and Trump and the Middle East and Ukraine and just the horrors that are going on in the world, it's so inspiring to see the progress that we're seeing with technology and the amount of money that people are willing to, invest in these things, right? And the competition and the energy and the excitement around this in the Valley, and the Valley now returning to the days of actually designing hardware, chips, which is and this is a testament, a tribute to reason. This is all human reason. This is technology and science and the thinking mind, and it's so phenomenal to immerse yourself in this and away from the I don't know, the stupidity and the pettiness and the unreason of a political class and our and the debates about politics that happen here in the chat and everywhere else that are so, to a large extent, so devoid of reason and thinking and considering and debating. There's no tribalism in tech. Isn't that amazing? There's tribalism maybe around politics in tech, but there's no tribalism in tech about tech. NVIDIA has a great chip. Let's all become NVIDIA fans. No, I'm going to build my own. I'm going to beat them. That's such a great attitude. It's so amazing, And it's not just about competition, right? Because Apple could say, oh my God, we need to invest a gazillion dollars in developing our own AI tools because we fell behind and these guys are way ahead of us. And maybe they're doing that as well. But instead of that, or maybe in addition to that, they go to OpenAI and they sit down and they cut a deal. I don't know how much OpenAI is going to get paid for Apple to use their system on their phones. A lot, I assume. But I've always said capitalism is a lot more. Capitalism is 90% cooperation, 10% competition. And you got to love the cooperation. You got to love the competition. It truly is amazing. So I'm looking forward to continuing to bring you up to date on the super exciting things that are happening in AI, the things we should worry about, like clones that are misinforming, like a Yaron clone that comes online and endorses Trump. We need to be careful of those. But at the same time, celebrate. I want the Yaron Brook Show to be a place where we celebrate technology and where we celebrate artificial intelligence, because I think, again, the upside is so amazing. And if we're going to survive, these nutty times, if we're going to survive the evil that is Biden and the evil that is Trump, this is how we're going to survive it. We're going to survive it with technology, and we're showing people. And one of the things I want to do in this show is show people the efficacy of reason, how successful reason is, and if we can only focus on that, if we can only focus on innovation and ingenuity and reason, hey, we are changing the world, and there's no reason only to change it in the dimension of technology. We can change it in every dimension. Every dimension, we can change it. All right. Thank you, everybody. I've got a lot of questions, so we're gonna go to the super chats now, and you can still ask questions. But let me say a few things. If anybody's interested in my public speaking course that I plan to do after OCON, the day after OCON, please let me know this weekend. I might cancel it because I'm not getting a lot of interest. I'm not getting, significant numbers, and if I don't get them, I might cancel it. But I'd like to know sooner rather than later. So if you'd like to attend a public speaking seminar with me, a workshop with a lot of one-on-one time and some practice and hands-on and fun, and you can spare the day after OCON, June 19th or 20th, then please just drop me an email, Yaron@yaronbrookshow.com. Yaron@yaronbrookshow.com. If you're not ready to register, you just want more information or whatever, you can register on my website, but yaronbrookshow.com, and click on the workshop. But yes, let me know if you are interested, if it's something you want. If not, yeah, just let me know if you are, so I know whether to do this or not. Let's see, what else did I want to say? That is the workshop we've done. Let me say this. I think in the future, if I do more of the Peterson Academy, you guys should consider coming. I mean, It was a lot of fun. I think the people who were there had a lot of fun. I think some of you listeners were there. A number of you came because I mentioned it on the show. I think you would have a blast. And it's 2 or 3 days. It does take you away from work, but you should think about that. And then, so that is that. Anything else I need to mention? Yes, the Ayn Rand Institute is a sponsor of this show, as you know, and since the registration for in-person attendance at OCON is basically closed, that's what they tell me. I'm sure if you really ask them if you can still come, they'll let you, but maybe not. I don't know. But if you would like to attend, if you would like to attend via the internet, right? If you would like to attend via the internet, if you would like to watch it virtually, you can still sign up to watch it live as it's happening over the internet. So please go to aynrand.org/start here, aynrand.org/start here to to enroll in the online live broadcasts from OCON, which I think are a lot of fun and you would really, really, really enjoy. So let's do, hopefully you guys will find that valuable. I think it is. You get some great courses. A lot of them are brought out afterwards anyway, but it's always fun to be live and doing it while it's live. By the way, I will be doing the Yaron Brook show live from OCON. There will be a session. I think it's right after my talk on Friday, the first Friday of the conference. There's only one Friday in the conference. I will be doing a YBS show from OCON. So if after my talk you want to join me, there will be information at the conference for where it's being held. Please join us in doing that. Please join me in doing that. It should be a lot of fun. It should be interesting. All right, I don't know who that is. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about? I think those are my announcements. So let's jump into the questions. Yes, don't forget, Super Chat, you can still ask questions. It would be great if we made it to the new goal of $1,000. We're only $75 short. It would be kind of cool if we made it to kind of close off the year and basically achieve the monthly goal that I set for the month of May, which we're very close to. All right, Liam says, based on the question from yesterday's show on which party has better run states, on average, cost of living is far lower in red states, infrastructure is cleaner, less union thugs slowing down projects, fewer homeless, less tolerance for crime. True, can't get an abortion though. Education in the schools, mostly not as good. Do you really want to compare infrastructure in Mississippi to infrastructure in California? I'll probably take infrastructure in California. The Northeast has lousy infrastructure primarily because it's old. That is, there is an age issue. But you've got some red states that are, let's see, they're not that well run. They're super poor, much more poverty in red states than in blue states, much more. You're going to encounter more poverty in red states than you will encounter just on a day-to-day basis than you will in blue states. Less unions, that's good. But again, that's changing. What was the one auto company in one of the red states unionized recently? Fewer homeless, because home prices are cheaper. Those are related. It's my argument about home prices. There's less tolerance for crime, and yet some of those violent states are red states. I think Missouri, where St. Louis is a red state, and yet St. Louis is one of the most violent places in the country. Memphis, I think. I mean, you could go down. We could take a look. Louisiana. You could take a look at. I think New Orleans right now is the most violent city in the country. competes with St. Louis. But we can take a look, and you'll find, I think, that there's more violence. There's maybe less tolerance for crime, but there's more crime. There's actually, a lot less crime in New York than there is in Houston, which is a blue city, but all cities are blue. But it's a red state. So it's a much more complicated picture. It's a much more complicated picture, right? Most of California, I'd say, with the exception of San Francisco and parts of LA, California is one of the safest places in the world. Particularly if you go down to, like, where I lived in Orange County, and you go to Irvine or anywhere in Orange County, particularly southern Orange County, crime is, I wouldn't say non-existent. It's not non-existent, but it's about as safe as anywhere, anyway. And it's a blue state. So, again, all of these things, Orange County is turning bluer and bluer every time, right? It voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. It's bluer and bluer. So, I mean, again, you can quibble, you can complain, but you asked about red states. You can go to, here's a blue state, here's a blue area. You can go to Marin County, north of San Francisco. I don't think there's any significant crime in Marin County. So, I lived in San Jose. There wasn't a lot of crime in San Jose. Maybe in San Jose, but maybe not in Mountain View and Palo Alto and Saratoga. None of those towns, which are all blue towns, have crime. So it's very easy to divide the world in a tribalistic way into blue and red, and one is good and one is bad, and that's it. But the world doesn't work that way. It's just not that way at all. At all. And the sooner you stop thinking in terms of blue and red, the better off your life will be. And the more options you will suddenly discover that you have in terms of living your life. Right? All right, Mark, should the U.S. and Canada accept refugees from Gaza? If so, should there be a special screening for them to ensure they aren't Hamas supporters? Well, I don't think anybody should be accepted as refugees. I think everybody who comes to America should pay for their way, or somebody should sponsor them. And absolutely, anybody from a Muslim country, but certainly from a war zone, like Gaza or like Syria or anywhere like that, should have to climb unbelievable barriers to prove, or to prove to the extent that you can prove a negative, that they do not belong to an Islamic group, that they've never supported an Islamist group, that they never supported violence. It should be very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, for people to emigrate into the United States coming from those kind of places. And the United States should have a list of places like that. We don't want, we're not accepting people like this as long as these places are inherent, are violent, as long as inherent that there's civil war. And we'll still accept individuals, but we'll only accept individuals who can really go out of the way to show where they come from. I criticized Trump in 2017, 18, because his Muslim ban on immigration was pathetic, right? He had a Muslim ban, but he didn't ban Saudis, even though the Saudis were the 9/11 terrorists. He didn't ban any of the countries that were actually enemies of the United States, actually posed a threat to the United States. He banned a bunch of countries that are insignificant and unimportant. So Trump, not in anything positive you think about Trump is not true. It's just absolutely not true. It happened, anything good that happened in spite of Trump, not because of Trump. So, no, I think that there should be massive barriers for places that are clearly violent. And, I was quite willing to have a Muslim ban and have a war declared on militant Islam, and during that war have a ban on Muslims. And I said that when I did that debate with Leonard, he asked me, would you accept a ban on Islamic immigration? I said, yeah, if we declare war, yes. Enter the game. Hi, Yaron. My name is Matt. Just discovered your work, and it's been life-changing. Excellent. I was raised Christian. Do you have any suggestions, rations for fighting the folly that comes from moving from altruism to selfishness? I mean, I would say really immerse yourself in Ayn Rand's work, particularly her novels. They will give you the inspiration. They will give you the inspiration to make that shift and to understand what that shift involves. I think the novels are the most powerful tool for that. And then immerse yourself in her work and in the material that the Ayn Rand Institute produces, and the courses, the lectures, the blog posts, and yeah, I mean that's the track. There are no shortcuts. And then the other thing too, I mean, I would recommend that you watch from my videos, my videos on Yaron Rules for Life, Yaron's Rules for Life, because I think a lot of those about integrating the ideas into your life, a lot of them involve how do I make this a philosophy for living my life? How do I bring this to every aspect of my life, which I think is so crucial, and so crucial for the altruism versus selfishness. So, yeah, I mean, you've got to do the work. You've got to think about it. You've got to consciously think, why am I doing this? Am I being altruistic? Is there a reason here? And often you'll find you are being altruistic, and that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Just acknowledge it and try to avoid doing it. But acknowledge it, and acknowledging it is a big part of the battle. And don't when you are being altruistic, which all of us are going to be here and there, given how we were brought up, acknowledge it and say, I shouldn't do this. This was wrong. Next time I won't do it. Think about it and try to figure out why you did it. What caused you to be altruistic in this case, but not in others? Just do that kind of mental work. I think is crucial. Liam says, also, you stated that there are segments of the population in a mixed economy that are condemned to inescapable poverty. I don't think that is true. Even if you're on welfare, it doesn't mean you can't choose to get out of it. Yeah, I think that's right, but I think it's very, very, very difficult. If you're on welfare and you attend a public school in the south, a government school in the south side of Chicago, and you're a kid, and the whole environment around you is, don't even try. Don't even make an effort. It's going to take somebody extraordinary to be able to overcome that and rise out of poverty. So don't minimize the amount of damage that our government schools do to these kids. They don't educate them. They basically are little prisons to keep them away from the streets during the day. And an environment in which the parents are living on welfare, where they have no role models, an environment in which gangs are much more attractive, and in which there's just, and welfare is everywhere and gangs are everywhere. This is, don't minimize how almost impossible that is. And I know conservatives often say, oh no, everybody can bootstrap themselves. Most people can't. 99.9% of people in that environment, that kind of horrible environment, and it's a horrible environment, can't. So it takes somebody extraordinary to manage it. So it's possible, but it's the extraordinary. Ian, Hunter Biden is about to go to trial on federal gun charges, another non-objective law that is rarely prosecuted. Do you think Trump supporters are as worked up about this case as they are about Trump case verdict? Oh yeah, they're very worked up. They're really, really, really upset that he's going up on only gun charges. All these pro-gun people love the fact that Biden is going up on these charges, but what they're really upset is that he's not going up for charges of treason and charges of bribery and charges of a million other things that they think they know that he actually did. Now, Hunter Biden is a creep, a horrible human being. in that he shares that characteristic with Donald Trump. Luckily, he's not running for president. And there's no question that Hunter Biden used his father and his father's connections to make himself rich. But all politicians do that, including Trump's children. They did it. So, but no, I don't think there are going to be a lot of MAGA defending Hunter Biden's right to have a gun. Don't think that's going to happen. Q2 Santos. Elon Musk says his AI will be truthful. What do you think about that claim, considering that AI does not have the reasoning faculty and and senses that humans have? I'm dubious. I'm curious how Elon Musk defines truth. I mean, I found it interesting that when Lex Fridman asked Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, what is truth? Neither of them could come up with anything other than mathematics. Talk about rationalism. Talk about complete rationalism, right? So I doubt it. I'd be curious to know how. I mean, maybe Elon has a good definition of truth. I don't know, but the Sam Altman, Lex Fridman exchange was very revealing, right? He didn't say, like, Sam Altman asked Lex Fridman, what do you know is true? And I would have said that I'm holding this pen, that I'm talking in front of a camera right now. I know that is true, 100% certainty, right? Anything that I experience directly through my senses, I know with certainty is happening. All they could come up with is something inside here, mathematics. So maybe Elon Musk is 1,000 times better than Lex Fridman and Sam Altman, but I'm not sure. So that's a big problem. But you're right even there in a sense that AI cannot be truthful. All AI can do is spit out an answer based on its integration of what is available to it online. AI has no direct experience because it has no experience. It cannot experience with reality. All it has is what it's read. So all of its knowledge is floating abstraction. And it's primarily based on what a majority thinks. Now, you can de-emphasize nonsense on the left, and maybe, if Elon does his job, de-emphasize nonsense on the right. You can de-emphasize certain conspiracy theories. You can de-emphasize certain voices. Maybe, I'm sure you could build that into the algorithm. That doesn't guarantee truth. Truth is not in the middle. It guarantees that it won't be quite as wacky as Google's. But you need a consciousness, and you need reality as your reference to be able to actually be truthful. And of course, AI doesn't have either one of those. It's not conscious, and it doesn't have a reference to reality. Philosophy at Work saying, I'm sure capitalism is great for those who want limitless growth without any ceiling. But what about the floor? I mean, the beauty of capitalism is that even when it comes to the floor is constantly rising. So capitalism is like an elevator that is constantly going up. I mean, your perceived ceiling is there, but it doesn't really exist because the elevator keeps going. And there's a floor, and the floor is there always, but it's rising. It's getting greater. The idea that there's no floor in capitalism is absurd. The richer a culture is, the more difficult it is to become poor. The richer a society is, the easier it is for people to come together and help people out. So, capitalism is the solution both for the ceiling and the floor. Indeed, it's only because we have a little bit of capitalism do we have any kind of floor, i.e. welfare. Because you have to have people producing wealth in order to have a floor. So, in a truly capitalist society, that floor would be created by private people, but there wouldn't be much need for it because everybody would get so rich so quickly. If everybody's earning a six-figure salary, then they can save for a rainy day. They don't have to rely on charity. They They don't have to rely on a welfare state. And everybody could be earning a six-figure salary if we had capitalism. Just grow wages by 5% a year and take the lowest wages, and within 40 years, everybody's making well into the six figures. And it's not that hard to grow wages at 5% a year if you have real capitalism. You don't have this drag on growth and more important and related, a massive drag on productivity. All right, guys, let me just remind everybody to subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Press that subscribe button. To like the show, if you haven't yet, just click the like. Make sure to like the show before you leave. And to support the show, either monthly, through monthly contributions, on Patreon or on PayPal, yaronbrookshow.com/membership. Or you can subscribe, or you can support the show right here on YouTube. By doing a sticker or asking a question like Andrew just did, and having that direct trade, value for value trade right here live while we're going on. But please consider supporting the show. A lot of people watch the show today, listen to the show today because Trump was in the title, I guess. Please consider supporting the availability, the making of this show. It seems to provide some value to some people. Those people who you think it provides you with some value, even whatever it happens to be, please value for value. Thank you. All right, Andrew asks, Dr. Peikoff tells of a long talk in Rand's apartment and how he could deduce how many people were in her building lobby based on certain clues. He asked how she would figure it out. Rand, go to the lobby and count the people. Yes. Rand was big on just go and observe reality. Leonard used to go on concretization walks, on walks where he would go to find the concretes necessary for the understanding of the abstract ideas that he held. Now, you can statistically imply how many people are in the lobby, but if you really want to know how many people are in the lobby, just count them. Right? Causation works. Yes, go see causation, but also, and concretization. Leonard was challenged with rationalism, as almost all of us are. And, rationalism, the way to get over rationalism, to concretize everything. Examples, concretes. Go see them in the real world. Go show me examples of it in the real world. Show me causation. Don't talk about causation. Show me causation. Or more importantly, show yourself causation. That way you will know it. All right, Meribens. Capitalism leads to flourishing in the future, but what about before? What about before the future? I think capitalism leads to flourishing even before. All right, I have no idea what she's looking for here. I think she's just giving me a hard time. I think that's it. Thank you, Meribens, for the support. And Meerkat, welcome to the late Republic era of the American history. Any bets on how long it gets a Caesar? P.S. Gaza must be destroyed. I don't know how long it gets a Caesar. 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, something like that, maybe faster. Doesn't look good. It is not looking good because there's no backlash. The insanity is around us, and when I call the insanity, when I tell you the insanity, so many people jump to say, oh, no, that's not insane. Who are, again, claim to be objectivists, and never mind the public out there. The world is crazy. Michael says, Barry Weiss just did an interview with Jerry Seinfeld and said, Jews don't do well in an age of mobs. And in our mindless culture, it's easy to form mobs. Jews don't do well in an age of mobs. Jews don't do well in an age of tribalism. Mary Ben says she's using YBS to shamelessly flirt with her boyfriend via dad jokes. I don't get it. One day, Mayor Benz, you will explain all this to me. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Yes. And look, this is why the existence of the State of Israel is so important, because it's a escape. It's an escape. When the mobs come rounding up Jews, which they might after they round up the illegal immigrants, that kind of mob mentality, that kind of attitude towards individual human beings is the same mentality that ultimately rounds up the Jews. And it's good that you can get on a plane and get out of here, and that there is somewhere you can go. But yes, mindless cultures, tribal mob cultures, and those are not cultures that are good, particularly for Jews, historically. Tazy Surface asks, donate to Yaron or donate to Trump? Easiest question I've answered in a while. Yeah, it's pretty easy. To YBS, the Yaron Brook Show. I mean, did you see how much money Trump got from being convicted of 34 felonies? God, I mean, what was it, $35 million in one day or something like that? I mean, I would be willing to be convicted of 35 felonies for that kind of money. I mean, the funny thing is, this could very much backfire on Democrats and get the base so excited that Trump would win even bigger because of this, rather than killing his chances. Liam says, continued, although you are right that blue areas have a monopoly on smart, creative, and transformative people, there is a brain drain from California and New York City to Texas and Florida. Yeah, and not surprisingly, they turn the places where they brain drain to into blue places. Just ask Denver. And to some extent, the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Northwest used to be red until the Californians left California and moved there and turned it blue. And Austin is already a blue place, and that's where a lot of Californians are going to. But they're likely to transform some of the suburbs, some of the cities around Austin into blue places because they bring their blueness with them. So, again, I just don't think it's worth thinking in terms of red and blue. It's just not useful. Think about the particular attributes, the particular benefits and costs associated with any particular place you want. And the reality is that nobody or very few people are moving from California to Mississippi, or for that matter, Alabama, or rural Georgia, maybe Atlanta. So, you can pick and choose. Right? And a lot of them are moving to Utah. Utah's a favorite place for people to move. That's a red state. But you really want to live in Mormon Utah? Really? So, yeah, I'm not sure what you're looking for. A simple algorithm to tell us what's good and what's bad, but it doesn't exist. Harper Campbell, how do you get to a point where people are so miserable they lose all empathy for each other, mass killing like a Holocaust, or even the vicious hate people unleash online? I mean, this is not driven by misery. It's not driven by misery. It's driven by ideas. It's driven by mindlessness. It's driven by becoming a mob. It's driven by tribalism. And if you don't know how that happens, look around, because it's happening right now. It's happening all around you. It is right here, right now. How did tribalism rise in Germany? How did it reach that manic state? Look around you. And Leonard Peikoff forecast this, right? He gave you the ominous parallels. And he said it would happen in the United States. And it is. And it is. Andy, always enjoy the show. I'll be annoying enough to ask for an Islamic Revolution show again. Islamic Revolution show again. I just think it's a really fascinating and hideous history worth looking at. Sure. I mean, if you want to sponsor a show where I talk about Islam, happy to do it. Happy to do it. John, I'm an atheist. My wife is non-practicing. We want our 5-year-old child to choose his beliefs as an adult, but address his questions about God, Jesus, etc. in comparing the Christian God to a myth effective. Yes, I think so. I think people believed in myths, they always have. But you also have to explain to your child, because I think it's important for him to know, and as he grows up, also in how he interacts with other people, that some people really, 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 really believe this myth. And they're committed to it. And indeed, in many social situations, if you question it, people will be offended. And you should be careful. I mean, my experience is religion didn't come up because it has no way to come up from until they go to school and somebody mentions it in school. My eldest son came home one day and said, "What's God bless you?" Because at school he heard "God bless you," and many times over there, there was a song or something, "God bless you, God bless you." He thought it was one concept. He didn't have the concept of God. Where would he get it from? Where would a child get the concept of God? So it never came up. And then when he asked that, I explained it to him. Some people believe there's a thing that you can't see, you can't feel, you can't sense, and that it does these things. And he kind of said, "That doesn't make any sense." He was like 3 or 4, something like that. That doesn't make any sense. And that was it. Don't think we ever talked about God again. I mean, we did about religion in various contexts, but not about the existence of it. It just didn't make any sense to him. I mean, the reality is that to raise somebody to be religious, you have to model religion. You have to really make an effort. Really make an effort. Unless they're psychologically a failure, and then when they're adults, they seek out religion in order to satisfy whatever they're missing psychologically. Iron Meerkat, this is probably not the start of weaponization of the justice system, but doing it against a political candidate in a sea change, Gaza must be destroyed. I doubt that it's a sea change. I mean, maybe it is, because now Trump will feel like he has the retribution and so on if he wins. But I don't think this is the sea change. I think we passed the sea change a long time ago. And again, I think a lot of this is because it's Trump. And one of the things that is really interesting about this case, and it was true also of the civil case that he had over sexual assault, is that his defense attorneys were so bad. I've heard so much criticism of his defense attorneys, their closing arguments, the way they question witnesses. And you've got to ask yourself, what is he even doing? I think a decent defense attorney would have got him off. Dershowitz would have got him off. Shay, did you see Biden's? Oh, we talked about this, yeah. Big Worm, I don't lose sleep over the rounding up. It's obviously a campaign move. Will never pass Congress. The wall, I don't have a problem with as long as we have a big, fat, fast gate. Yeah, but the whole point of a wall is not to have a gate. And the rounding up, just the fact that America would vote for a candidate that suggests that, just the fact that a significant number of people get excited by it, whether they can pass Congress or not, is scary. It's scary. So maybe it can't get past Congress now, but the idea is there, and it might just be a matter of time. Whoops, Alex. Those chips have thousands of processors, regular CPU chips that have dozens of processors at best, so you can do a lot of things in parallel. Cool. Ed says, what happens if China takes over Taiwan? That's where TSMC is. They just had their military exercise surrounding Taiwan. Perhaps it's because Biden is blocking NVIDIA chips going to China. Well, I mean, I think that there are plans to blow the TSMC factory up before it falls into Chinese hands. So that's one. But it is a big issue because even if you blow it up, you lose 70% of the manufacturing of advanced chips happens at TSMC in Taiwan. So what do you do then? This is why I have said that I do not believe that the United States has an option but to try to defend Taiwan. And it better start diversifying manufacturing chips out of Taiwan in the US or Mexico or wherever it is they have the skill and the talent and the ability to do it. Europe, doesn't really matter. But out of Taiwan, the United States has to, and even South Korea is problematic because you can imagine the Chinese Navy not only blocking Taiwan, but blocking exports from South Korea. We are 100% basically dependent for advanced chips on Taiwan and South Korea. No American company actually builds advanced chips. It's TSMC, Samsung, that's it. So we better protect those sea lanes. This is why the United States should be heavily investing in a Navy, heavily investing on the Western Pacific, and making sure that the Chinese don't take Taiwan, at least not until we've diversified our supplies. Paul says, Peter Zine says independents have determined the presidential election since early 1960s, and they have discussed it with Trump. Therefore, he has no chance of winning unless Biden drops dead. I'm not convinced of that. I mean, I think that is what a lot of people think, and I for a long time shared that view. But if you look at the recent polls, the polls are basically Trump is leading Biden pretty much everywhere. And Biden is very, very unpopular among independents. Not because they like Trump, but because Biden's so incompetent and so senile that people just can't vote for him. So I just don't know. I'm not convinced of that at all. I think Trump has a good chance, because of Biden's incompetence. I think that basically almost any other Democrat could beat Trump. As I said before, I think Trump is the only Republican candidate who could actually be beaten by a Democrat. Maybe not Biden. That's the only caveat. Maybe not Biden. All right, last question from Chad. What the F is this ceasefire proposal? It's, Benjamin Netanyahu's capitulation, which I told you would happen. So I don't know why any of you are surprised. You should all be saying, Yaron, you're right again. You're right again. By the way, this proposal was on the table a few weeks ago. And it's been on the table for a while. And a few weeks ago, Hamas walked away from this proposal, same proposal. And right now, there's a good chance they'll take it because Israel went into Rafah. So the more military pressure Israel puts on, the more likely it is that Hamas will sign on to that deal. But the deal is awful, horrible, pathetic, ridiculous, a complete and utter betrayal by Netanyahu. But that doesn't surprise me at all. Richard, ChatGPT has a GPT's feature where users can train it on a specific topic. I counted 10 objectivism GPTs. I found the objectivism coach fairly impressive. GPTs are in GPT's left sidebar. Click Explore GPTs. Cool. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Thank you, everybody. Really, really appreciate it. We blew through our goal. We made our stretch goal, which means we made our May goal, which I really appreciate. June is going to be rough because I'm going to be at Ocon for almost 2 weeks. So I don't know how many shows I'll be able to do from there, but I'll do as many as I can. So we'll have to really kick it off. Oh, don't forget tomorrow we've got the members only show on sculpture, on female sculptures of females. You can become a member anytime to join us on that show. So please think about becoming a member so you can join. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very beautiful, very, very beautiful, the sculptures I'm going to show you. So I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great, great, great weekend. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. Bye, everybody.